Okay, I'm Lori Goode. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Index Exchange, and I'm sitting down virtually with Matthew Scott Goldstein, better known in the industry as MSG. He is an independent analyst, advisor, and consultant at .msg, and creates a beautiful newsletter that he sends out quarterly, What I Saw Happen. And because we're not in CES this year, which we probably should be at this point having this conversation in person, we thought we would do this virtually to kick off the year as somewhat of a milestone to move past 2020 and move into the new year. So welcome, MSG.
Oh, I am so happy to be here. Rather be in Vegas or in person, but I think we're making the best of it under the circumstances.
Yes, we are.
Oh, by the way, my wife also calls me the COVID cop. You can add that in my intro next time. One of the things I wrote in my newsletter in the overview section, which I think a lot about, is how it was the longest year ever. It could have been a lot worse. And that, a crisis sometimes just feels like it's a horrible thing to waste. And what can we all do to not take advantage, but to come out on the better side of this crisis? And how do we do that? And there's going to be big breakthroughs that are going to come across for this crisis. As an example, we saw, home deliveries, especially Amazon, go through the roof. We're going to eventually see new products, new processes, new companies emerge. They haven't been there yet. Things that we've never thought could ever happen before. Like 5 or 10 years ago, if you asked us about self-driving cars, we would not believe it. And now the Tesla is on pace of selling 500,000 cars a year and a market capitalization of $800 billion plus. I heard someone on CNBC yesterday saying Tesla's going to end up buying General Motors and get rid of all combustion engines and go all 100% electric and just change the fundamental industry. So there is going to be all this change that's going to happen. We're just not there yet. It was all accelerated during COVID, but I think you're going to see a lot of things happening in the next cycle, whatever that cycle is, whether it's a year or 2 or 3 or 4. And then one of the things I think about that, and we had this conversation previously, Lori, is that it's hard to actually develop new products when the product people and the engineers aren't all together, aren't having those conversations in person. And I think you made a really good point about that. What were you saying about that?
Well, yeah, we just had this virtual hackathon for the first time ever at Index Exchange. And what we found is that I think the inception of the idea, when you get together to incept ideas, that's the part that really people have to come together in generally. But the actual way of working, I think people have figured it out pretty well over time. So they use tools like Discord or the things where they can screen share, they can review each other's code. They are immediately connected through VC. And so I think the actual process of development was not that difficult, but it was a sort of a dedicated effort to build something new and to innovate. I think where you might see some slowness in building new products or coming up with new ideas is in the white space, the brainstorming, the invention of idea that really requires somebody else to bounce your idea off of. And maybe that's where the disconnect will be. But I think the actual development, I feel that the engineers have kind of figured it out on our side. And in fact, I feel they've described preferring to work from home in a lot of instances where they have a little bit more flexibility. One of the engineers that I was talking to said that work from home is not a problem. It's just not being able to see somebody in person that's the problem. So I think they miss the connection and discussion versus the actual working side by side as much.
So is part of the issue that the brilliant people who come out with the products itself, right? They're not having the serendipitous conversations, the going out to lunch, the brainstorm with people to take that product to the next level. And once they do that, disseminating to the engineers who are working at home will work.
I think so. And the hackathon worked because it was dedicated. You're there to invent new things. You're there to brainstorm. I don't know in a virtual environment if that happens organically. If you organically dial someone up and want to just chat about problems or challenges that need to be solved, I think that's something that tends to happen a bit more organically, getting coffee or having lunch or talking to customers more regularly.
So the proverbial, I had the idea in the shower it's not really true. It's really, I had the idea in the shower, and then I talked to 10 people about it at the office. I was so excited, and then we figured it out, and then I disseminated so the engineers can work virtually and figure it out.
Yes, and I think it's important. I think with our organization that product managers guide things along, but engineers, we're an engineering-led company, and so a lot of the great ideation comes from the engineers as well. It's that sort of collaboration in solving problems that isn't necessarily directed from one piece or another. It's setting that strategy overall, but then how do we solve that problem in creative ways comes from the collective.